Okay. So today is actually probably one of the more exciting videos that I've had because I have been looking for this pair of gloves for a very long time, and when I did get them, I was extremely excited. And yeah, it was a wait. It was kind of a wait. So that being said, I got these gloves from the Boxer Boutique, actually, and these are the Chegui genuine ostrich T lace-up training gloves in 16 ounces. And that's a long title, but that's the title that was shown on the Boxer Boutique to describe the glove and essentially show you what the glove was. So this is a Chegui glove that is a T model glove, right? They have other models essentially. I know a lot of people might be familiar with them, but there are other models like the AA model, which is going to be that all-around model, and it's going to be the S model, which is also a sparring model. Okay, this essentially is kind of like a bag and mitt kind of glove model. This is for specifically aimed for people who want to hit the bags and hit the mitts. So it's not necessarily a glove that you would use in sparring, and I wouldn't say it's necessarily an all-around glove you could use for everything. I think its sole purpose is for the bag and mitts. I got these in 16 ounces in the red, and this is a premium version of the glove. And as you see from the title, it is ostrich, right? I'll get to the ostrich in a little bit, but I want to weigh these gloves. I do love the fact that they have a nice, beautiful 16-ounce indicator here on the side. I love big indicators on the 16 ounces. Sometimes, you see a lot of Mexican-made gloves, which, this is a Mexican-made glove with a tiny little flap here, and I can't stand that, but it is what it is. So I want to weigh them before I get into more details on the glove, and I will weigh them here, and I'm going to go 16.08 on the right glove, and then we got 16.05. Okay, so super close to 16 ounces. I don't think you could probably get much better than that, which is very shocking because these gloves are made in Mexico at the Chegui Boxeo, and that's a non-commercial workshop, right? And that's something that Matt, the person who's responsible for these gloves and this line, he really wanted to talk to me about, essentially. So yeah, there's a lot of things about this glove I want to talk about, and one of the first things that I always end up starting to talk about is obviously the leather, right? This is a full grain cowhide leather, and this leather, I would say, I've been conditioning the leather, so it looks really nice. I think it looks nice, and it has a nice feel to it. I don't know how to necessarily explain in terms of ultimately the feel, but it isn't a slippery glove whatsoever. It has kind of a nice texture to it, and I would say, you see little wrinkles here, and I'll get to that a little later, but it's essentially because this glove is so, you could definitely just move and maneuver your hands around so much that it does have a wrinkle point here, but that doesn't bother me. The glove, in terms of the leather though, I think it's decent. I wouldn't say it's the thickest. You're not gonna, I'm pinching it so you guys can actually have a better understanding of how thick the leather is, but it is for sure durable. And it does have like a nice sheen to it when I have it to the light. So I do appreciate that. In terms of the bottom portion here, I don't know if it's the same leather as the top, but it's described that he gets the leather from a tannery in Mexico, and he does not purchase them from resellers. Okay, so that's something that I didn't think about previously in the past, if glove manufacturers are really purchasing them from resellers or not, but it's interesting. In terms of the liner, it's going to be a water resistant spandex liner. This liner is different in my opinion. You can see it's kind of like a red liner here, and I'll show you the liner, and then I want to just feel it, and hopefully you could hear it. So it by no means is an uncomfortable liner. It's very comfortable, but it doesn't have that like silky smooth texture. It's kind of like in between that and kind of like a rougher liner, but it's very soft. Yeah, so as you can see, I can see right here, they kind of like put the liner downward, and then they kind of folded it and then like sewed it right there. And the reason why I'm saying that is because I could pretty much put my finger behind the liner here on the portion of the bottom here, which I thought was funny. I thought that was kind of interesting, that I could do that with my hands. I haven't been able to do that with other liners, but you can see it's separate from, this back portion is separate from these two inner portions, okay? So the liner does a really good job, in my opinion, at, you know, it's a water resistant liner, and I think that actually is true. You obviously sweat in the gloves, but the one thing I did notice is that after I sweat in the gloves, I took them off, I thought that they were going to be wet for a long time, and not necessarily. When I actually tried and put them on again a couple, let's say maybe like 30 minutes later, I felt that it was already dried. I thought that was pretty cool. I don't know if that's everyone's experience, but it's my experience. In terms of the padding, you know, we got a PuLat padding, which is going to be, you know, your polyurethane, and it's going to be a latex padding, right? So in terms of the PU that they put in the glove, it's from the United States, which was interesting. It's not coming from Mexico, which means something. It means that he specifically chose a PU that he believed that was something that he wanted the glove to have, and the feel that he wanted. So he, you know, obviously, I think that's pretty unique in a way. You know what I mean? Because I'm wondering, I'm not an expert on PU or polyurethane or anything of the sort in terms of foam, but this foam, I'll get to it a little later, I think is probably my favorite part of the glove, is the foam. And I was very surprised at that, because originally when I opened the gloves, I thought that there was possibility that there was going to be maybe I was going to be more of like a puncher's feel, and I was going to pretty much kind of pierce through it. Nah, not necessarily. The way these gloves, the foam, it feels, it does a really good job. So it's kind of a little bit of magic there, and I was really impressed by that. So I'll get into the rest of that later. In terms of, oh, also just letting you guys know, I guess it's a 4-layer padding system, and on another interesting thing is that it says 4 layers padding, right? But the inside, it says that this glove is not recommended for people to wear knuckle guards. It's because it has a built-in knuckle guard on the knuckles in the padding. So that's interesting, and at first I thought that was kind of fake, you know, because there's also a lot of glove companies that come out with different ways to describe things. You know, I've seen many companies, you know, even Hit and Move will do something where, you know, you might have a certain padding, just a small amount of padding on the knuckle portion, and, you know, maybe that's what I was thinking they were talking about in terms of this glove, saying that there's a built-in knuckle guard. But you kind of feel what they're talking about, and I'll talk to you about it once my hands go in the glove. But it does feel like there is a built-in knuckle guard, and I take the person at their word, and I try to test the gloves the way that the manufacturers and the way that the creators of the gloves want you to test the gloves, because that's kind of the way I want to review them. You know, so essentially that's what I wanted to do, and that's what I did. I did try them with knuckle guards essentially on top of that for just a little bit, and I did realize that I didn't like it that much because it made the padding feel a lot different. So keep that in mind. Ultimately, the glove style of this glove, right? I'm looking at the profile of the glove, and my original reaction was that the glove itself was compact, and I still believe that. I think that this is kind of essentially a 16-ounce glove, but in kind of a 14-ounce to 12 maybe in size. And I'm going to prove that, even though this is probably not the best way to prove it, because I'm going to show you a pair of gloves that are 16 ounces. And these glass gloves are a 16-ounce Mexican-made glove, and it's by far huge compared comparison in size. They're both 16 ounces, but you could obviously see that this is way bigger in stature than this glove. Okay, now I'm going to give you a 14-ounce pair of Primero Salto gloves, right? And then you're going to see that they have a very similar profile in terms of size. So in terms of being compact glove for 16 ounces, absolutely. Now, would I love to see how the 14-ounce looks of the Chegüís and stuff like that? Yeah, I would love to. Because I would wonder if they look like a 12-ounce or something like that, or in that effect. And if somebody out there has the smaller models, let us know, you know. Write it down in the comments if you have experience with that. But this definitely feels like a compact glove in my opinion. Now, the style of the glove. This is this premium version of the glove. There's two versions essentially. There was another version that was kind of more of the normal version. This one was more premium because of the ostrich, and because this portion right here, the ostrich, the two differences basically is the ostrich and the fact that this big portion of the logo is right here on the back of the hand, right? Now, if I were to do it all over again, I'd probably choose the other version because I don't think there's any differences in performance whatsoever. I just think it's differences in aesthetics, right? So just keep that in mind. I'd much rather, in my opinion, have this down here where all normal patches go, and probably if you want to put more ostrich, I'd probably put it more ostrich on the thumb. There's a little bit here, but I'd much rather have a more ostrich on the thumb. In terms of the style of the glove, you see these massive welted seams here, and they're very thick, and that was something that really caught my eye as well. I thought that was an intriguing thing, but they are definitely durable, and I think that, you know, you would not have to worry about you know, anything coming apart with those things, because they are huge and they're thick. So just keep that in mind. The thumb right here on the glove, which is interesting to me, I want to talk about, is this portion right here. Do I know why this portion is the way that it is? I'm sure there's a function to it. I just don't know what the function is. A big part of the reason why I think that this might be a reason, that might be something to do with the functionality of the glove, is because the glove itself is a detached thumb. Now, this is the detached thumb. The one in the Boxer Boutique is a detached thumb. Now, if you decided to buy it from Matt himself, you know, on Reddit, you know, if you were to go on Reddit or something, and he has the tag, it's spiritual underscore amoeba underscore 142, and I'm gonna put this in the description anyway. So if anybody is trying to look for the gloves or anything like that, you know, essentially they don't only just come detached. Essentially, you can ask for a attached thumb. So keep that in mind. But the intriguing point to me is that I actually wanted the detached thumb to feel it. You know what I mean? That's what I wanted. Now, that was something that was intriguing to me as well. As you can see, it's kind of a long thumb, but it's nice and thin. It's not too thick. Another thing that was, in terms of the style of the glove, that is intriguing to me was this grip bar. And the grip bar itself, I think, is different, because you see that there's a smaller portion of the grip bar, right? It's very dense, it's very hard, it's small in terms of length, right? Would I have preferred a longer grip bar? Possibly, because that's what I'm used to. But I would say that this isn't bad. It kind of feels like you're holding like a small, you know, small amount of pennies, like a roll of pennies. And it does give you that feeling like you're actually, you are gripping onto something. And it's not bad. It's really not bad. I was surprised. And it does have a nice angle to it. But you see that there's, you know, obviously they're laced up here. Oh, not laced up. There's stitching here and here. That's basically keeping it right there in the center. Now, I've seen other gloves do this. Not to the center, though. I've seen other gloves essentially push the grip bars kind of more towards this portion of the hand and leaving this portion of the hand empty, right? So they probably put like half a grip bar, but it'll be kind of more close to these knuckles. This one's different, and it's in the middle, and it feels different to me, but it doesn't feel bad. So it is a different feel, and I love different feels. I love different ways of looking at gloves and essentially, you know, feeling different styles. But I will say that in my honest opinion, I probably would have liked a bigger grip bar. But I mean, I don't think it's the end of the world, and I honestly don't know if I would have liked it more or not. But I'm just used to the bigger grip bars. Well, the longer, not the thicker, but the longer. Now, in terms of the air holes I'm looking at, I am in love with the amount of air holes here, and I'm in love with the size of the air holes. So as you can see, I don't even want to count them because it's so much, but I'll say 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, I don't know, 10 on the fingertip, and then there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on the thumb. The thumb could have been done better on terms of the holes. As you can see, like, you could see that they punctured the holes, but there's a lot of this white there. I wish it was cleaner. I wish the holes were cleaner. Like, I could pull stuff, like I'm pulling stuff out right now. You know, I could pinch out some of the stuff here. I wish the holes itself were just a little tad bit cleaner. But I absolutely love the fact that there's that many grip holes. All right. In terms of ultimately the, I would say the stitching. I think the stitching's fine. You know, I'm not a big heckler on stitching. The only time I am is if I feel like a glove essentially is not going to last, or it's starting to pull apart on a high tension area. In this case, I don't get that, and I think the stitching itself is clean. As you can see, there's a lot of clean stitching here. You can see the double stitching here all the way through here, but there's a lot of stitching going on around here. Even in this thumb area here, I could see the double stitch all the way up here, and it just seems like that's just so much stitching. I don't know if there's a reason for this, but there's a ton of it. You know what I mean? So I'm looking at the palm of the glove, and I'm going, there's so much stitching. Now, in my opinion, I would prefer the stitching not be white. I would kind of rather the stitching be either, if you're going to do a stitching, this much stitching on the palm side of the glove, I kind of prefer it to be red or black or something like that. And, you know, obviously this isn't a sparring glove, but I obviously had a lot of gloves in the past. If I had any blood on them or anything like that, the first thing to go is this, or dirt. The first thing you'll see is just that kind of grime on all the white stitching. Not to say that this was going to happen to this glove, but especially with red gloves, a lot of them bleed too. And this hasn't happened, surprisingly. The color of the glove hasn't bled to the white, so that's really good. I love the fact that this is black laces, and these laces, in my opinion, are fantastic. I love, like, these rolled up laces. I don't really like flat laces all that much. I like the rolled up laces, and they're long, and they're definitely long. And let me see. I'm just keeping it going, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going, and I love that. And I love being able to cinch up the wrist portion of the glove very, very tight. And that's one of my favorite things too, is making sure that the glove itself is secure on the wrist. A lot of gloves, for some reason, they have such short laces, and it's like, it's not the end of the world because you could change the laces, but it does kind of give me this bad taste in my mouth, like, you know, you could have gave me some bigger laces. In terms of uniformity here, you see that this portion of the ostrich is thicker than this one. I don't know, you know, when you deal with exotic animals of that sort, I'm not going to be a heckler on, you know, how perfect the two pieces are. I'm just glad that they're on there. But you do see that there is a difference in size in terms of that. So I have to bring that up. Then on the inside, actually I'll get into the inside a little bit later, but I'm going to go into, I would say, the comfort of the glove next. Yeah. And I'm going to say, once you put your hands in, it feels comfortable, has that feeling, and it allows you to get in. Actually, let me get into the wrist here. So this wrist, I would say, is not the most protective wrist, right? But I don't expect it to be, because like I said before, I would expect a nice protective wrist if you were deciding to spar with the glove. I don't spar with this, and it's not recommended to spar with it. So, you know, they don't recommend it, so I don't recommend it. So The inner portion, which is the interesting part, because the back portion here, I don't really know how big this is, but there's not much padding. It's very, very, very soft. But the inner portion on the inside here is an interesting thing. I'm feeling it, right? And when you feel it, it's soft to the touch originally, but then there's like this hard piece that goes all the way up to, let me see. It pretty much goes high, and I don't know if it's like a large piece of foam. It's all the way up to here, I think. And it keeps this whole portion stiff. Now, I was expecting, because of the back portion here is kind of soft, I was expecting this whole portion would be really flimsy, but because of that, it actually keeps your wrist at a nice kind of a straight wrist, because this is such a hard piece in here. You don't feel it because it's surrounded by soft foam, but it is a nice hard piece of foam in there. I just wanted to put that out there in terms of the wrist protection, because I think that I wasn't expecting the wrist protection to be as good as it was. In terms of the back, I wouldn't want to get punched back here or kicked or whatever, but you know, in terms of this portion here, it does protect your wrist from, you know, really bending around too willy-nilly, you know what I mean? So when I put my hands in the glove, very comfortable. And the first things that I kind of notice is, the first thing that comes to mind is obviously the comfortability is good. And on the up top, there is no, you know, sagging of any type of liner whatsoever. It kind of just feels like you feel the padding of the glove. And there's a good amount of space in here. There's a decent amount of space in here. So just to keep that in mind, let's just put this into perspective. I was assuming, because of the detached thumb, that I was kind of worried about my thumb being, you know, jammed or anything like that, because I'm so used to thumbs that are attached. So when I was like throwing punches, I felt like, you know, my thumb was kind of out there. I did adjust to that, but just put this in perspective. My thumb's right here, right? It ends right there. So all this extra padding here, I'm not touching my thumb. So that made me feel a lot more safe about the whole situation. Especially, you know, you don't want to break your thumb or anything like that, but it made me feel like I was far more protected than I thought I was going to be. So ultimately, you know, my hands, when I put my hands over on the glove, it automatically has an open feel. It doesn't automatically put your hands in a fist position. It puts your hands in an open palm position. Now the fingertips, interesting, they feel pretty comfortable, but you know, the part that I would say is a little hard is that welted seam here, and it kind of acts as a secondary grip bar, or just a secondary portion of the glove, where I wouldn't call it a grip bar, but you could latch onto it with your fingers, and it does a good job doing that. Like my fingers go over it, and it's comfortable enough, but it is a little hard. And the reason why I'm saying that is because on the left glove, I had to break in a little bit because it was rubbing up against this portion of my hands on my fingers, and I felt like I had to break it a little bit, even though they come like this, pretty much broken in. But I'm talking about just ultimately the inside of the glove, and just getting used to it, and you know, sweating in it a little bit just to get that to be a little softer for me. That's not going to be for everybody, I'm sure, but in my opinion, that's kind of what happened in my opinion. So it took me a couple sessions to get that feeling of it rubbing off, rubbing the side of my finger, because you can see the welted seam comes all the way over here, all the way to the side of the finger. And it doesn't affect my right hand whatsoever, but it did affect my left hand. So just keep that in mind. Yeah, so ultimately, this is ridiculous. You can open and close your hand at will. It just feels like my hands are so free with these gloves. Like, you could put a thumbs up if you want to. You can do all the types of things with these, and it just makes you feel like you have like a pair of mittens on, like a really protective mittens, and it's very freeing. It's not so constricting. So it is the opposite of sometimes I want something that's constricted and kind of puts my hands in a position and keeps it straight. But in this case, this glove was so fun to work with because I felt like my hands were so open, and being able to, you know, essentially do a lot of what I wanted to, you know. So I was really impressed with that. The hand compartment is decently sized. When it comes to what I was talking about before, when I said that there was on the knuckles, there was going to be this kind of knuckle guard. I feel that. I feel it on my knuckles, and it does feel like that. And I could see what they're saying. So there is a portion, like I'm touching the padding when it goes all the way up to here, and then when it gets to the knuckle portion, you do feel like there's kind of a bigger piece of padding, and it's more protective towards your knuckle. So yeah, I think it's unique, and it's very protective, which was something I did not expect to be. Now, in terms of when I put my hands in a fist, you could see I could poke out my thumb, but ultimately you don't have to. There's like this indentation here that I'm touching that I really like to put my finger in, and this is kind of where I like to put, this is where I kind of like to punch, and it gives you this nice big, you know, flat surface here to land on, and it's super comfortable. And the thumb itself is, you know, ultimately, look, it's so much padding here that I was not worried whatsoever about hurting my thumb. So I had a really good time with that. The interesting thing about these gloves, right, is the angle though. So it's angled this way, downward. Now, essentially most gloves, you know, they're kind of angled the other way, right? Let's say if I bring the glaze back in, you see the glaze is angled upward, right? And this is so you could essentially, that kind of forces you to hit with these two knuckles, and it gives you that connection to the first two knuckles, and it gives you more protection of those knuckles as well. This has the opposite effect. So originally I was a little concerned of how I was going to feel when I was throwing and hitting punches, but I'm actually shocked that that didn't bother me. And it's weird, right? So when I did hit, I was hitting and I'm going, okay, I'm hitting on the two knuckles, and it's kind of more protective on the weaker knuckles right here, because I've hurt these knuckles many times, especially when I was a lot younger. I used to throw a jab the wrong way, and I would kind of flick the jab, and I would always injure these two knuckles. This has like all this extra padding on those knuckles, but I'm able to, you know, really connect with these two knuckles, and I did not expect that it was going to feel good doing it. I thought it was going to kind of contort my arm, but it did not. So yeah, I really like it. You know, in terms of the padding itself, I would say this has like a nice medium feel to me, but it's ultra protective. Like I can't really get to my knuckles. I can't feel my knuckles. It doesn't necessarily feel like the thickest padding either. If you were to look at it from this angle, it doesn't feel like the thickest padding, but it's, you know, it's protective. It's protective. It feels a lot thicker on this side than it does on this side, but it's very protective. And I was shocked because I could really lean into shots at a really, I'm talking about really leaning into them. And like I said before, I wasn't using knuckle guards. So the good thing about that is that I believe he's telling the truth when he's talking about the knuckle guards. I definitely believe he's telling the truth about that. So in my opinion, you know, this padding is extremely protective, and I have no problem saying, guys, you could wail on the bag and you shouldn't have to worry. You know what I mean? I think that this is a fantastic option for a bag glove, you know, and a mitt glove for sure. And it has this nice thud to it. You know, I just enjoy the sound of it. I had a lot of fun with this glove, and I'm saying that because, you know, it gives me a different feel, and it made you just kind of want to work out. So I did have a lot of fun using this glove. I did enjoy it quite a bit, and I'm really glad that I got these gloves. I will say that yeah, the performance is right up there. It's really up there. I kind of prefer these types of different bag gloves than some of the other bag gloves that I see out there, where the padding is ultra hard and there's like this big shell on the front. I understand the value in those, but you know, I think that this gives me a better feel. You know, maybe it's because of the angle, but it does give me a better feel and like a better connect feel. I guess a feedback is what I want to say, and it does disperse very well when I'm hitting the bags. So it does have that. So you know, shocking. You know, I guess I'm shocked about it because I wasn't necessarily expecting that kind of performance about because of the foam. But I kind of understand, you know, him going out of his way to, you know, export it from the United States, the polyurethane, the PU, because maybe he's really onto something, you know. But ultimately, yeah, super protective, love it. I will say, if I the price of the glove. So I'm getting to the price here. Now this is the interesting part of the glove because I'm not sure what the price is going to be from now on, right? Because essentially I got these from the Boxer Boutique, and I don't know if they're going to be sold there anymore. I know they probably have some there now. I don't know if they're going to be continued to be sold there in terms of the newer stock. But I got these for $265, and then I paid shipping, and then ended up being about $280. I say $280, and I think that's really high, in my opinion. I like the gloves and everything, but $280 gets too high for me. I like them, but you know, I'm just a normal person, just like everybody else, and $280, and you know, me collecting other gloves, it kind of starts to add up, and then it does become difficult. But I know when I talked to Matt, he is taking orders right now, and he's charging for $195, and that's including the shipping in the United States, not necessarily in other countries and things like that. In the United States, it's free shipping, $195 flat. I think that's extremely great deal, an extremely great deal. I think that $195 is really good. I would do that all day. And that's including the other models, the S model, which is the Sparring model, the AA model, which is the essentially the all-around model, and that's including those models. And the way they do it, the way he does it, is that you contact him on Reddit, or you can contact him on I believe Instagram at chegui.mx on Instagram, and you could actually talk to him there as well. Now, I will put all of the ways you can contact him and order the gloves, but essentially they do it, and it's kind of a custom thing. So it is what it is. So once the door's open, the window's open, jump for it, because I don't know when it's going to be open again. And then when you do jump for it, it's going to take a couple months before you get your glove. I'm going to assume. But you could absolutely, you know, choose your colorway and customize the gloves the way you want them to for $195, which is absolutely crazy. So in terms of my final thoughts, guys, I enjoyed them. I love these gloves. I wish the price was $195 when I bought these. But you know, the ostrich, you know, you try to be fancy, but ultimately I probably would have been better off getting the regular version of the glove, which I think around was $225 on the Boxer Boutique website, which is not a bad price. But you know, you pay for ostrich, like you know, it's funny, you think it's gonna somehow make you punch harder, but no, it doesn't. So all in all, fantastic glove, and I'll make sure that I put all of where you can get these gloves in the description, so you guys just pay attention to that. And I would say this is a fantastic glove, and you should absolutely purchase it. Little things I would say that maybe the cons are probably the placement of the ostrich. I wish it was somewhere else. I wish that this patch here was somewhere else. And yeah, maybe I wish the grip bar was a little bit on the longer side, but you know, that's just my opinion, and that's not everybody's taste, but that is just me. And obviously, if you do get the regular version, this patch is going to be down here, so that's an easy fix for you guys if you decide to buy these gloves. So all in all, fantastic glove. I had a good time, so thank you, Matt, and there you go. That's my review.